Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So today's game is very special for me. So a few days back I decided to play in the arena tournament that was hosted by a popular streamer on Twitch by the name of Lula Robs. So I had actually late joined the arena with like 20-15 minutes left. So I managed to get in just 3 games. But the last game that I played was against actually an international master, and the game that I played against him actually became one of my most memorable wins. So the guy I played against, he became an IM long time back actually, and you can say that currently he may be not, he's not in his prime, but a win is a win, I guess. So I'm actually very proud of this win against an international master. So let's see how I was able to do that. Let's get started with the game. So the game begins normally as e4, e5, he plays knight to f3, I play knight to c6, all normal stuff. And now he plays bishop b5, Ruy Lopez, and I decided to go for knight to f6, that is the Berlin defense. Now you, from my past videos, you will know that this knight to f6 is a very solid move, and I decided that since I am playing against an IM, I will take the solid approach. So Berlin is solid, but when a player like me plays it against an IM, it's not always it does not always turn out to be very super solid. So my opponent decided to castle, and now I played here bishop to c5. Also I could have just taken here, but I decided not to go into that line because I don't know all the intricacies of that. So I just decided to develop my bishop here. My opponent played c3, of course with the idea to strike with d4. So I just decided to castle, and my opponent decided to strike here with the move d4. Now in the game actually I decided to take here, which is not a very good idea, because in this position you can actually just retreat with your bishop, and you might say that this pawn is hanging, but if your opponent decides to take here, you can just take back with the knight, and after a move like let's say queen to d5, you can just play your you can just come back with your knight, and that is completely fine for you. So my opponent of course did not, actually I did not come back with my bishop. I decided to instead take, and after my opponent takes back, you can already see that these pawns are very strong. They are good central pawns. They are not allowing my pieces to move freely. So after he attacked my bishop, I decided to go with the move of bishop to b4. Now in this position actually maybe it would have been better to just come back, but I thought that why not go here and not allow the rook to come there. So that was my idea with the move bishop to b4, and he played here this normal move e5, now asking my knight where it wants to go, and I decided to go on the d5 square. So his bishop came and attacked me. I decided to move away, and I in turn attacked his bishop, and he protected his bishop, and I played this move of d5. Now my idea with that move was in future not to allow this to come with tempo and sort of blockading his central pawns. That was my idea with the d5, and he now plays this move of h3, which I like very much, because now it does not allow my bishop to just simply go and pin his knight. h3 is very prophylactic move from him, and I decided to play here the move f6. Now you can already see that these pawns are very weak. Sorry, actually very strong, not very weak. So my idea with the move f6 is to somehow weaken them, because I can't let them just leave there. So this move f6 actually undermines this center. The word meaning of undermine is that now you can see that this is very good center that is there, and with the move f6 I am challenging this center of white. So white decided to play here queen to c2. Actually a very good move could have been just maybe to sort of develop, but he decided to instead go with the move of queen to c2, clearly with the idea of taking my pawn. So I decided to in that position just defend my pawn, but a better thing could have been maybe just to take here, wherein if let's say bishop decides to take here, then actually it's not that bad for me if I just go here, because now let's say if you decide to take, then I can just or even take back, and after let's say you take my pawn, I can just play queen to h4, and yes, I am a pawn down as you can count from the material, but already you can see that my queen is well placed. This bishop is looking good. Maybe in future I can sack on h3. This rook is well placed. This knight is going to maybe in the future jump to that c4 square, and it could have been very good for me. But of course, in the blitz game, I did not see all of that, and I decided to just protect my pawn. So my opponent then decided to play this, again a good move I would say, of a3, and I decided to just retreat with my bishop, and he decided to give a check here with a very a serious idea in mind. So I just move away from the check, and now he played this very dubious move of knight to h4. Now on the look of it, it does not look very dubious because of the fact that he is now threatening this check, because let's say if I play some stupid move, then already you can see that this check is very deadly, because if I take this bishop, then he takes with a double check such that I can't take his knight and he would be up an exchange. Also, knight takes e7 is possible in this case, wherein that would be actually the computer choice. So this knight to h4 move actually has a very serious poison attached to it. You can't just take it very lightly. And in this position, actually, there are two moves that you can sort of play that give you an advantage. One move is f5, that is Indian's favorite move, because let's say if now black decides to take here, then I can just take with my bishop, and let's say if you decide to take with your bishop, then I can just take with my knight, and you can already see that this move is now forking both your queen and bishop. So if you move, then I can just take here, and that would be completely winning for me. And now if your bishop decides to take here, then it's the same. I just take your I take your knight, because you can see that with this move of with this move, after f4, if you delete the move f4 actually now opens up an attack against this knight, so you can't actually take with the knight, and this actually loses. Just I can take here, and if you take back, then I can just take here. You can no longer see that this is not a double check, so I would have two pieces for the rook. So f5 was actually completely winning in that position. I actually managed to find the second best move in that position, that is knight takes d4. So my opponent went ahead with his idea, and I decided to take his bishop, and he decided to take my rook here. But note, the only difference is that his queen in this position is also attacked, but right now I can't take it because my king is in double check. Neither can I take this knight, neither can I take this queen, so I have to move my king, and I decided to just move my king, and after his queen got out of the attack, I just took this pawn, and now you can see that yes, he is up an exchange against me, but you can see that the material right now is actually equal, because I have these very two strong pawns in the center for his exchange. So I have a piece and two pawns for his exchange, and these two pawns are not just two pawns, but they are very strong connected central pawns, and this pawn you can see is already a passer. So that gives me actually a very good advantage in this position that I was able to get against this IM. So my opponent just decided that he has to now retreat because his knight was attacked, and now you can see that he is attacking this pawn. So I decided to just protect my pawn, and he went ahead and attacked my knight. I just decided to save it, and he decided to take my other knight. Now you can already see that this is a very good pawn chain that I have as a compensation for the loss of exchange. So my opponent decided to attack my pawn. I just protected it with the move c6, and he now makes a very elemental blunder. He now allows me to take now I get these two connected passers. Now you can see that these two pawns are connected, and they are passed pawns. Now passed pawns basically means pawns that cannot be stopped by other pawns. Now you can see that this pawn can be stopped by this pawn, but these two pawns, they cannot be stopped by any other pawns, because no pawns are in its vicinity with this move of f4. Now this move f pawn was actually kind of restricting this pawn, but with the move f4, and I played this move of e4, now you can see that I have central connected passers. Now you might say that in this position, why did I not go here and just win back the exchange and be clearly 2 pawns up? That is because he can in this position actually play this move of queen to d3, and let's say if I decide to take here, he can just take back, actually not just directly take back, he can actually play this move of f takes e5, and you can see that now both of my pieces are hanging, and let's say if I decide to move here, then he can just take with his rook, and you can already see that his pieces are now very well placed, threatening all sorts of things with his knight also. Maybe in the future rerouting to this e4 square, it could have been very dangerous for me, so I did not go for that, and I instead played this move of e4, and now I am threatening to play this move of knight to e3, because there is no queen to d3 at that time. So in this position he actually decided to retreat with his knight, because let's say if you decide to now protect this square, then already it's very dangerous for you. After I give, let's say, a check, and you move to the h2 square, let's say, then a move like queen to f6 is very dangerous for you, because you can see that this knight does not have many retreating squares for itself. And let's say if you decided to come with your queen, then already these types of moves are there, wherein now you have to go back with your knight, and I can even just take back, wherein I will have this very good pawn chain. Your king is also weak, so that would have been a very nice advantage for me. So instead my opponent does not allow that, and in this position we just saw that this is not possible, because these pawns become too strong and you lose your knight. So that is why he actually played in this position this move. And now you can already see that I can just take, and after he takes back, I played this move of knight to e3, now forking both the pieces. So he decided to move away with his queen, and I decided to take back, and he decided to take back with his rook. Now you can see that we had actually had a similar kind of position a couple of moves back, actually, when I showed you guys this variation, wherein the queen comes here. Okay, not that, but rather to take here, and after bishop moves, I come here. Then you can see that this position is just minus 0.8 for white, but the position, the position that we actually reached in the game is actually this position is actually completely winning for black. That is because a very strong knight that white actually had on this g6 square is not there, and now my pieces are actually able to defend this king, and I don't feel the king weakness. So in this position I played this move of bishop to e6, clearly aimed at idea of stopping the queen from coming to the f2 square, because you can see that in this position the queen was actually threatening to give this check. So I just stopped that, and he played this move of knight to e2. Now his idea is to get the pieces into the good square and maybe create an attack, but I just killed all the counter play with this move of queen to g5. Now one of the most important things that I learned while playing chess is that whenever you are up in material, it's usually a good idea to exchange of pieces such that it will be easier for you to convert. This is not always true, but mostly this works out. So I played this move of queen to g5. That was my idea, that I want to exchange as many pieces as possible. And you can see that white actually cannot decline this trade, because it cannot retreat. If it retreats here, my pawn will take. If it retreats here, and I can just take with my bishop. So he had to take, and he actually decided to take here and played this move of knight to d4. Now this knight to d4 is very strong move, because let's say I decide to move my bishop, then he can actually play a move like this, and that could be a bit risky for me if this if e pawn gets further. So I played this move of rook to e8, now defending my rook such that this pawn will still be blockaded. So he decided to get his king active. Actually I do not like this move, because it allows me to simplify things with this move of rook to f8. Now I had already told you guys that whenever you are up in material, you should try to exchange. So with this move of king to f2, I was able to actually exchange both pair of rooks, and now I was actually comfortable that I will be able to convert this position up 2 pawns, because I think my bishop is quite superior to his knight, and if he decides to exchange that knight, then since I am up 2 pawns, I should be able to win the king and pawn endgame. So in this position, he's now got his king active. I made this move of bishop to d7. This move is actually my favorite move, because the idea is now to play the move c5, because I did not like the move c5 directly in this position, which is completely fine because I did not want to allow this knight to come to this square. So with my move bishop to d7, now this move is very dangerous for him because he can no longer get access to this b5 square. So he decided to play b4. He can only just make some waiting moves, and I decided to play this move of c5, wherein after he did not take, but it's the same even if he decides to take here, and he actually moved his knight and I took the pawn. So after the pawn, I now get this important square of e3, wherein I am attacking his pawn on the e5 square, and he can't defend it in any way. So he decided to get his king active, and I decided to just take the pawn. So after that, now like the best thing he can do is probably take full control of the square and not allow my d pawn to get further. So he just blockades it with the knight, because knights are usually the best blockaders because they can do the simultaneously two jobs, blockading this pawn as well as you can see that knight is attacking a lot of squares in my camp. So knight is a very good defender and he tries to hang on to his position, and I make a couple of improving moves for myself. And with this move of g3, you can already see that my pawns are very well restricting this king, not allowing this king to go anywhere, and that pawn actually provides as very good winning chances for me, because later on if I am able to attack this pawn and get rid of it, you can already see that this pawn is very close to queening. So that was my idea by playing this move of g4 and then g3. So he just again got back his knight. He's just shuffling with his knight, not allowing me to break through, and I play this move of bishop to a4, wherein after he goes and attacks my pawn that is there on the g3 square, and I use that pawn as actually a bait for him, and I play this move of bishop to c2. Now my idea is that if he decides to retreat with his knight, then I can just play bishop to d3, and then I can, as I told you guys, I will get to that pawn, and then my pawn can queen. So he realizes that and he decides to take that pawn. But now you can see that this knight is actually very much on the side, and my pawns are very strong. So I decided to push it, and he had to retreat with his king, and I decided to save my bishop. Now these two pawns are very strong for this knight to stop, and so he decided to go back because he has to do something about it. Either he will maybe sack his knight, but that will not be enough compensation. So I went ahead and attacked his knight because I know the queen endgame is completely winning for me, and he played this move of g3 in desperation. Now what he is doing with this move of g3 is actually he now wants to create a passed pawn of his own, and maybe he can sort of trick me in the endgame because he is an IM and he is definitely a better endgame player than me if we had like an equal endgame, but this endgame is completely winning for me. So I played this move. I actually could have directly taken as well, but here first giving a check is better for you because the king has to now go back, and I decided to take here, and after takes I simply played this move of king to e4, and you can see that I am now threatening to push my pawns. So he as we had predicted that he will try to create a pass pawn with this move of g4 and h5, and I played the best move that is there, it is d3, completely pushing his king back, and now I came back to stop his pawns because I just can't push this pawn because then the king will nicely sit here. You should always note that the king can sort of create a blockade here, and if he manages to get this pawn as a passer, then it will be very difficult for me to then win that game. So I just decided to first eliminate all his counterplay, because in the end game you should always first see that if you can somehow eliminate your opponent's counterplay, then that is always the best move. So he played this move of h4, and I decided to come back with my king. Now you can see that my king is nicely shouldering these pawns, and it's not allowing them to queen. So he decided to take here, and after I decided to take back with my king, you can already see that these two pawns are very strong. They are not allowing this king to go any further, and these two pawns are not going anywhere also. So in this position, actually my opponent, my international master opponent, he flagged. He did not resign here. His time actually ran out, and I actually managed to win this game by on time. But actually you can already see that I'm completely winning with these 2 pawns, and this was a very nice game for me against a very strong opponent. So my opponent was actually doing very well out of the opening. Actually in this position you can already see that he has very good central pawns. In this position you can see that these pawns are very strong, but then I attacked the pawn chain with the move f6. He put some pressure on my king. I retreated with my bishop. Then after, in this position, he actually made an elemental blunder with this move of knight to h4, because I could just take with my knight here. Even f5 was good, but I decided to take the knight. And after this sort of complication, I was able to come out of them very successfully. I defended with a weak king and was able to get back my exchange as well. And when the position got stable, I exchanged my queens, and after a couple of moves I was easily able to convert these 2 pawns up position by simply making a very good moves with my pawns. You can already see that this is a very very strong formation for me, but if you have just one advantage, usually it's not enough to convert. So I had to come up with some other advantage that I had in the position. So I made this g pawn actually my advantage, and when I threatened to just when I was threatening to just come here and then win this pawn, he had to actually take with the knight and go away from the action, and then I was able to sideline his king, and by finishing his counterplay with his passed pawn, I was able to beat him. So that was the very nice game that I managed to pull off against a very strong player, and I think this is my highest rated opponent that I have managed to beat. This was actually an unrated game, so I did not manage to get any rating points from that, but nevertheless this was a very nice game that I wanted to show you guys from the moment I played it, and finally I was able to show you guys it now. So I hope you like this game, and this is also an inspiration for you that when you play chess, it's not guaranteed that the high rated opponent will win. If you manage to get into some sort of complications, then you can always maybe trick out your opponent and you can win. So my opponent is of course a very nice player. He was actually doing quite well in the tournament and he was beating everybody until I stopped him, and that was the end of his streak. So that was the game. So I hope you enjoyed it and you learned from this game. So I will see you in the next episode. Until then, bye bye.